Space, the final frontier. Or is it?
North Dakota, 1837. Mandan Indians and other Indians on the high plains suffered from smallpox epidemic. We know that the steamboat St. Peter's that came in on the St. Louis River was a fur trading company and had the disease on it. We know that the captain wouldn't turn back because of his important delivery of goods. Was this all just a coincidence that the Indians got the epidemic so quickly and that the epidemic spread so wide in range? Or did the government play a more sinister role with smallpox blankets, distributing them to the Native Americans that they wanted to kill off? So the conspiracy goes that in 1837 at Fort Clark, the U.S. Army ordered a shipload of blankets that had smallpox in them from the St. Louis. And St. Louis was a trading boat. So when that trading boat came over, they think that the U.S. Army took the blankets and they took in Mandan Indians into their fort, distributed the blankets without the Indians knowing, and told them to scatter all over North Dakota so that the smallpox got spread to all different Indians and they could wipe them out and continue Manifest Destiny.
This is similar to happened during the French and Indian War. The British did this to wipe out the support of the Indians that were helping the French, and I believe it was the Iroquois.
I don't know. I think the whole problem with this conspiracy is that basically the guy who started Churchill was totally wrong, because Fort Clark wasn't actually an army fort. It was a trading post, and it was 800 miles away from where the Mandan Indians were, so I don't think this is right.
You don't believe that they could have moved? Because the Plains Indians were migrational.
Yeah,
Sounds clearly like an offense, you know?
It's 800 miles away. It's not like they had planes and trucks.
Well, my thought is 1837. Indian resentment is high. Manifest Destiny is big. People want to move west. Indians in the way. What's a fast way to get out the Indians without making an actual military action? Maybe through spreading a disease. So is it viable? Yes. Did the government actually do it? I don't think so. It sounds a little too far-fetched.
It is kind of weird to see, you look at biological warfare back in 1837, and it's kind of unbelievable, but if you branch far back to French and Indian War, I think that it's within reach. I mean, I'm surprised the Americans didn't just remove the Indians like they did back with Andrew Jackson, but...
Another good point is that Indians they have no resistance to it in the first place, just like when we saw when original colonization happened. So even if it happened accidentally, it would spread as fast as, say, someone was to actually try to give it to them.
It's one of these things where you can't prove whether it's false or
no matter how much you look into it, unless
because they didn't keep records of we took Indians and gave them blankets that could or could not have been contaminated with smallpox. And it's just like the West, the Wild West of just fighting. So the Indians clash with the Americans clash with the Indians. It's viable that they could have done this. It's obviously possible that they gave blankets contaminated with smallpox on purpose, but I don't believe it.
Oh, you still don't believe it?
No.
I mean, that's just the way things were, I bet they did it. Maybe people even heard about it back then, but it was just such a common... the population's so low out there west, it can easily be pushed under the rug. Not even. People just didn't care.
Bacteria isn't even discovered yet, so the U.S. government actually put bacteria or disease on blankets and give it out? Probably not. I mean, it did adversely benefit the Americans, but it probably wasn't intentional.
Yeah, Jackson, what do you think?
I really think that the U.S. government didn't plan on spreading smallpox, but it happened. They were trying to do something, possibly to give a peace offering to the natives and be like, can you please move out of this land? We want to move into it for Manifest Destiny. And it just so happened that they contracted smallpox from these blankets. I really think it was meant to be a positive, but turned into a negative.
Yeah, it definitely could have just been an accident, because as the Indians are migrational and they're just moving around all the time, they're definitely going to say it was 800 miles, but they're still going to be moving around, spreading to different tribes. Those tribes are going to spread it to other people. It might have been on purpose, but there's a good chance that by accident they could have taken out a whole lot of Western Indians.
It could have been they started with one group of Indians and they traded with the Mandan, or they traded with another group who traded with the Mandan, and the Mandan could have been the hardest hit. But it's one of those things where it's like I can see both sides, but I don't know. It's tough.
Would you say?
But I mean, if it's accidental, then they already knew that there was smallpox on the St. Louis because people were already getting sick. Why would they transfer blankets that were in like the place where diseases were to the fort already?
Just saying, even if maybe they didn't do it like, we're going to get smallpox blankets and we're going to bring them to the Indians. They were like, we have smallpox blankets.
Yeah.
Let's use them on the Indians.
Yeah.
Like, to even another town, they would have canceled the order, but they were Indians.
Even with that thinking, though, it's like they didn't really understand how that disease worked. So, I mean, given them blankets, they might have not thought that would have spread it. They were just trying to sell their,
Yeah,
manufactured
it might not even be that they were trying to kill the Indians. It was like we have a bunch of blankets that no one wants. It's like selling stale bread or something. You know what I mean? It's just like no one wants this, but like
We'll give it
We
away,
just-
and maybe
we'll
it's
give
something
it away,
happens
and
to you,
someone
it's not
will-
our fault.
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
took it.
That's probably what happened.
that's the only way I could see that this actually happened.
Yeah, it's like not intentional, but we're trying to get some goods out of it.
Cut this. It cannot be that long.
We'll cut it.
That's good, though.
That was a good one.
We did good. We got into it. I mean, I just wanted to talk. That's what you got to do. Like,
Play that
by the end, I just wanted to
Play
talk.
that text. I don't know if it's.
You look cold. Would you like this blanket?
April 15, 1865. The Union had just pulled out a victory over the Confederate States of America. Lincoln had saved the Union. And for the first time in over 4 years, Lincoln could relax. Or could he? Lincoln was in attendance of the play Uncle Tom's Cabin in a private viewing room at the historic Forest Theater. Suddenly, during the play, he was shot point blank in the back of the head by the infamous John Wilkes Booth. What was his motive? Was he working with anyone? Conspiracy theories started springing up all over the place. Stopped by the residence of Lincoln's Vice President Andrew Johnson hours before the assassination took place. Was Johnson in on the plan too? In another conspiracy, Booth was in cahoots with the Confederate States of America. Lincoln was a prime wartime target of the losing Confederate States. Encoded messages found in Booth's possession linked him to the Confederacy. Or was Booth solely just a Southern rebel with his own motives to capture Lincoln and hold him ransom in Richmond, Virginia? When plans fell through, he had to resort to assassination. What really was the cause of the assassination of this country's heroic president?
Alright, so the next conspiracy revolves around Lincoln's assassination. There's sort of three conspiracies that go around with this. Mainly, Booth has been thought to be in on it with the Confederacy. This was because there was coded messages that were found in trunks that Booth had in his possession about where he was staying, and those coded messages were from the Confederacy and stuff. There's another conspiracy that Booth was in on the plan with Andrew Johnson, who was actually Lincoln's vice president at the time, and this was based upon the fact that apparently Booth went to Johnson's where he lived, or part of his residence, and asked for him by name 7 hours before the assassination took place. So there could have been some kind of plan going down with that. And then the last one that a lot of people think is that Booth was just he was the mastermind behind the whole plot. He was just this enraged Southerner who had this beef against Lincoln and wanted to get some people behind his side and just come up with the assassination and when that went wrong.
It's kind of you look at him like a radical,
Yeah.
It's not unheard of, history of America, it's built on radicals, and the freedom they gain.
Yeah.
Freedom through being radical, so, I mean, that
was
one you couldn't really, it'd be hard to back up. You see this radical unless he, find his room and he has, scribbled notes,
Yeah. There's not that much evidence.
There's not that much evidence, but if you prove the other two wrong, that's one definitely could be true, and he's, who knows, you'll never know what the inside of his mind was.
Well, the difference between, going back to Neil's point, the difference between a radical, patriot, and a patriot is the winner and the loser. You look at it, you could call the American colonists that we lost a bunch of radicals. They got together and they scribbled a bunch of things down, Declaration of Independence, all that stuff. Because he lost, because the Confederacy lost, because his side lost, we view him as this radical, crazy guy, but in actuality, he was fighting for a cause he believed in. Killing the president of the United States, as a northerner myself, like, I'm thinking, wow, this guy's a lunatic. But, like, it's not something that was unheard of. Like, why not? Like, if you can, why not kill the leader of the country you're fighting against?
I think it's important to remember that Booth was from Maryland, which Lincoln did put under martial law at the beginning of the Civil War to protect Washington, D.C. And I would not be surprised if it was just his own personal beef by restricting his freedoms in Maryland and fighting against something like the institution of slavery and invading his home state. I could totally understand if he was just a lone radical who's like, I'm going to kill Lincoln. That's what I'm going to do, and he deserves it.
But they do have some of this evidence that there might have been some connections with Andrew Johnson, and there might have been some connections with the Confederacy. How strong do you guys think those connections are?
I mean, like, if you think about it, like, the Confederacy was going to use him. Why would they just use one person to kill Lincoln? Don't you think they would have done it before, like at the beginning of the war, and not toward like the total end when Booth killed him, like right before they were going to surrender and everything?
Well, it might have been like a last resort kind of thing.
Go up the bank, like if we're gonna
There
lose.
was
Yeah,
Booth wasn't
the
alone.
war
There
was
was,
technically
he
over.
had help from a bunch of different people.
He
There was
did.
he had like his own like.
I know, but I'm
Plan.
saying, like, why would they do it so late in the war?
Well, the war was already over.
They
War
probably,
was over.
yeah,
Yeah.
before they probably had some hope in them just being able to win without killing the president. Because if they kill him at the beginning, he dies a martyr, and then the North just completely
The North
rallies.
still has all their armies.
What I-
Exactly, they have their armies, then they have a dead president that they all love.
That's a great point. What I've heard about this kind of thing is that like it was kind of a plan that we're gonna kill Lincoln, but then they surrendered and there's like the war is over, we're done, and then he was like, I'm doing it anyways.
That's probably the most.
Yeah, that's not.
I mean, you look at, was he connected with Johnson?
That's doing it.
That's
Johnson was part of the
ridiculous.
South.
There's no way.
That's
like,
movie stuff.
That's
That's
movie
like
stuff.
straight up a movie.
if it's true, well then wow. Like that's pretty something to keep concealed to this day, not to be sure.
The
You
vice
find out about
president
this thing.
decided we should kill the president.
Yeah, it's like, does that really go? Like,
Whether or not the Confederacy supported him or not, though, they definitely supported him psychologically. I mean, if you go down to the South and ask if you wanted Lincoln dead, everyone would say yes. So whether the support was tangible or not, Booth definitely felt like he was acting for people in the South at that point.
Because still this day, they call it the War of Northern Aggression, not the Civil War.
yeah.
I mean, Mississippi just ratified like the 14th Amendment 2 months ago. It's like, they're...
But yeah, I can definitely see the connection with the Confederacy too, because after Sherman's march, they just like destroyed all the Southern economy, everything. They definitely have some really hard feelings, want to do anything they can to just final blow at the North.
Well, yeah, even after he killed Lincoln, he escaped across the bridge, which he had help on escaping. He hid in the barns and stuff. Like the Southerners were able, they wanted to help him. They weren't just like, no, we're part of the North now. It's all good, man. Like they were like, all right, yeah, it's cool, man. Just hide in our barn or whatever.
Yeah. What's up, Jackson?
The whole conspiracy surrounding Wilkes Booth, I've read into it. It was Booth working with the Confederacy, but he was working with a smaller sect that was like very radical and that really despised Lincoln just for being Lincoln and standing up for what the Republicans wanted. I don't think it was an order from the Confederacy to do it. I think it was a choice of him and his radical small group of Confederates to take down Lincoln.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Connor, time for school.
I'm not going to school, Mom.
Connor, it's Neil. We gotta do the intro.
Oh, the intro. Come here. Alright. January 25th, 1898. The USS Maine travels down to Cuba. Was the U.S. government baiting the Spanish-American War? Or was it all an accident? This conspiracy is pretty rough.
Alright, so our next conspiracy revolves around the origins of the Spanish-American War. This one starts off with the United States kind of bursting at the seams, end of the Gilded Age, wanted to expand a little bit, wanted to become that imperialist state that it becomes throughout the next 20 years. So it starts to become friends with these Cuban rebels that are rebelling against the Spanish. What happens is they send USS Maine, a newly crafted ship, down to the Port Havana in Cuba. While it's there, there's an accidental explosion but the explosion creates, mass controversy in the U.S. The Spanish attacked us, our boats died, I think it's around 200 plus men died in the accident, and it kind of propels the U.S. into war with the Spanish. And after that war is where the United States kind of emerges as the world power. So the conspiracy here is whether or not the USS Maine explosion was intentional by the U.S. to propel them into war, or whether it was accidental. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it had to have been accidental because there was no evidence of Spanish sabotage anywhere near the ship, and it's like, why would the United States blow up kill their own men, destroy their own ship to go into a war that they cleaned out in 3 months?
Well, in conspiracy, all loose ends are tied up, so why wouldn't they just kill everyone on the ship and tie up all the loose ends possible and make it look like it was Spanish sabotage?
And I mean,
the U.S.
there's no evidence of Spanish sabotage near
I still think the U.S. had
Maine.
motive. They
Yeah.
wanted to get into this war.
Undoubtedly, they come out stronger after the war, so they do benefit from this, and they do benefit from the start of the war. And the journalism during it, the yellow journalism that emerges for it, kind of motivates everyone to get into the war, kind of propaganda-ish looking. So
It's more of the journalism that I think propels the country into the war than the act itself, because it was the journalists saying it was a Spanish attack. It was all that stuff that was causing the.
Whoa, come on, man!
Basic!
Like, if you don't know what to say, don't say
Doesn't
anything.
matter, you just cut off and you sound stupid. Ah!
Stupid people everywhere.
Keep going.
Then restart the.
No.
Just keep going.
just keep going.
I mean, I think personally, if they did blow it up, it was just a means to an end. Who cares if they're gonna blow up one ship? They're gonna be able to go into war, get Cuba, get so much more power, totally take it over. I mean, they had a ton of industry in Cuba already, and if they say they got Cuba, they would have so much more. It would just be total expansion of the U.S. economy.
Yeah, it's a reason to attack Cuba. They blow. You can't just you said, who cares? Who blows up the ship? You can't just blow up an American ship. The Americans can't just blow up their own ship and kill a bunch of people to go to war. You can't do that. So that's why they had to make it look like, if they did it, look like Spanish sabotage and blame it on the Spanish, because you can't just be yeah, we just blew up our own ship near Cuba. We should invade Cuba.
I mean, more than this though, we come out, a couple of years from now, TR takes his big stick and goes down to South America, and then more than that, 20 years from now, you've got entrance into World War I. So it's their sphere of influence definitely expands at this point. So it definitely benefits. It's probable. Do I actually think the U.S. government sanctioned it? I don't think so. I think this was kind of just a coincidence that kind of sparked this whole chain of events.
I don't think it. I think it was just coincidence as well. But I mean, I think the government would have known if something happened that the journalism back home would have started a war. So they were kind of waiting for something to happen so that it would start something, because they definitely did have motive to want to become imperialists and start expanding. So they needed motive, and they were just kind of waiting. And then when this thing happened, I think they just kind of jumped on it and had the journalism back home start writing. It was really nuts.
I mean, if you look at the history of America, every time there's a war, it seems the country turns into this machine and starts grinding out products and everything. All of a sudden, we're rich and happy. Everyone, when Americans want to be Americans, then America does well,
Yeah.
And the nationalism's high. So it's understandable. It was a pretty small-scale war. They get huge nationalism out of it. They get how valuable is Cuba? It's ridiculously valuable, especially when they're at a point where they've been constantly chipping away at the continent of North America, where they had it, the stateside, and now we're out of land. Cuba's at your doorstep.
Manifest destiny can definitely continue out of the U.S. and they're just going to start using this to become an imperialist nation.
Yeah, but see, they never even got Cuba.
Well, there's two sides to this. There's the Spanish did it, the Americans did it, or it's an accident. So I don't know which ones you guys think, but personally, I think that it was either the Americans did it or it was an accident.
I think it was an accident, but the United States just jumped on the fact that it was an accident just to propel the war. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, it was an accident, and the government just let them roll.
Jackson, what do you think about this?
I think the whole incident with the Maine was not about the U.S. blaming the Spanish for blowing up their naval ship, or that the U.S. self-detonated the USS Maine. I think it was a malfunction that happened in the ship, and they just, through the panic of the rising Spanish presence, they just had to blame it on the Spanish.
Very nice point.
I agree. I agree.
November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas, where President John F. Kennedy was supposedly assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald. I say supposedly because there was a fabrication of evidence regarding Oswald's weapon. The trial also showed that there were possibly two men who were shooting him as opposed to just Oswald himself. Whether or not Oswald was the one who shot him is still for debate, but the trial has left theories to spiral out of control. Lee Harvey Oswald is the one who shot him on November 22nd, 1963, Dallas. That is the concrete fact of it, but there are numerous theories surrounding what actually happened. Because of his father's connections to the mob, many people think that JFK was shot by the organized crime from Boston. Other people think it was the Soviet Union that was trying to assassinate him to prevent Americans from gaining momentum in the Cold War. I personally think it was the Irish mob because Robert Kennedy was launching a crusade against it, despite the fact that it was the mafia that was able to promote them as high as they were in the United States government.
This is one of those clear cut, this could be a conspiracy, because in a conspiracy all the loose ends are tied up. Before Lee Harvey Oswald could testify, a man shot him, nightclub owner who had connections to the mafia. It's one of those weird ones where there's so many different theories and people have studied it, and it's Lee Harvey Oswald did it. We know that. Did he have help? Was he backed by someone? He did spend time in the Soviet Union, I believe, for a while. He's an ex-Marine. So it's one of those ones where it's just, everything could have happened. You don't know if it did happen, though.
In the Warren trial, the biggest reason the conspiracy stemmed from it is that in the Warren trial, they listed several different types of weapons that Oswald used, despite all of them being wrong from the actual weapon that he did fire.
The Soviet Union one, though, it's just everything could happen. You could see every single one of these happening.
Yeah, I could definitely see the Soviet Union one happening because, right in the middle of the Cold War, JFK is people's champion. The whole country generally is going to unite around him. If they kill him, they're killing a figurehead for the United States and definitely going to set some progress a little bit back.
Out of any conspiracy, this one makes the most sense. Cold War is what this is all about. It's a Cold War, behind the lines, an assassination would fit directly into this. You put the words together, they go. So, yeah, I think the fact to look at the Soviet Union or some communist connection, maybe a cult of communism, yeah, I think we could look at that.
I mean, you don't necessarily have to swing one way or the other. I mean, clearly there are connections with his family and the Irish mob, and it is during the Cold War era, so, I mean, he could have something to do with the Soviet Union, and it could have been part of the Irish mob. He could have had multiple allies on his side for helping him commit the crime, I guess.
Well, the reason I personally think it's the Irish Mafia is because numerous gangsters, including Jimmy Hoffa, who had connections to the ring that the Kennedys were involved in, they were all assassinated within 4 years of each other, and they apparently had notes and things saying that JFK is marked. He's a dead man. Go get him.
Yeah, the Irish mob acting killing a United States president. It seemed, the Boston Irish mob acting as almost a national power, killing a president seems
It's a big step.
It's backed by the Soviet Union. I don't want to say it makes more sense to me, but I mean it was a televised event.
It seems more plausible.
It was a televised big event for the United States. It was in front of a lot of people saw it happen. It seems a little too big of a thing for the mob to handle. I mean, the Soviet Union, may have not well done it. Really could have just been a lone gunman, or he might be backed by a few small groups. But altogether, I don't think I believe in the mob one, over the Soviet Union.
It's you have to remember that the mob is what got into power. They fixed state elections so that John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy could rise up through the ranks and have this national power so they can be free to go.
I imagine that's disputable.
But if they're making him rise to power, I just don't understand why they're killing him.
Because Bobby Kennedy was launching a campaign against organized crime, despite him being raised from it. He was like pretty much going back on what they were all promised by the Kennedys in power.
He did die.
He did die.
On the message, really.
Yeah.
That's where I can see that. But the
Scared the country.
The reason that I think that it's another conspiracy theory is because people don't think that Lee Harvey Oswald could have made the shot that he did. He took, I think it was 2 or 3 shots, and he hit Kennedy all 3 times, or both times, from a corner building, out of a window, from elevation, it was a military-grade rifle, but Kennedy's in a car moving away from him around a corner. He's a Marine. I heard he was a pretty good shot or whatever. He had like a pretty decent ranking in the Marines of like a marksman or whatever, but that's a difficult, just looking at it. It's like throwing, if you're imagining this and playing sports, throwing a football, someone running away from you, it's harder than hitting someone that's standing 25 feet away from you. So what it is people think that there was somebody over, diagram right here, he was driving this way. People think that people were shooting at him from a knoll.
You said 3 shots hit him?
Yeah. 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
He got,
okay, still, it's a fact. These are shots where he's taking one, taking his time, like eyeing it up for another one. It's bam, bam, bam. If it was coming from a gun, you know?
It was bolt action where he had to shoot.
Yeah.
He had to.
He's going fast.
I think we can just say that this is one of the ones that we will never know for sure what exactly happened and why.
Which is crazy because it's President of the United States.
Yeah.
It's not like the country's well developed.
Yeah.
You know,
And people
come
still
a far
can't
way
figure
and they still can't figure it out. So, you know, things like this can happen.
Jackson, what do you think about this?
Aliens.
Terrible point.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Can't believe it.
I don't think that's true, Jackson.
come on.
We're gonna pretend you didn't just say that.
Alright,
1947, Roswell, New Mexico. A local farmer just outside of Las Vegas discovers a strange pile of debris supposedly falling from the sky. The next day, that strange pile of debris was mysteriously gone. The Roswell incident was one of the first of many conspiracies surrounding Area 51 and the secret of Nevada. Many believe the CIA and the U.S. government created a secret federal base for classified American aircrafts and possible extraterrestrials. Also behind the Area 51 theories is the U.S. 1960s moon landing, supposedly filmed with real-time movie film equipment in the Area 51 base. Surrounding Area 51 is a testing site for the declassified 2007 Blackbird. The real question is, does Area 51 really exist?
So with all the speculations around Area 51 and the Roswell incident and the possible hoax behind the moon landing in the 60s being filmed in Area 51, do we really think that Area 51 exists?
I don't think it's a question of whether it exists. It's just what do they do in Area 51?
Yeah, I think it's a lot like the Denver airport basement. Like, we know it's there. Maybe something weird is going on there, but they're not letting us in, so we have no idea, and speculation's just going to keep increasing.
And as for the moon landing, I think that there's no way that could have been a hoax, especially since it's been proven by multiple people that they actually did go to the moon, and that like the phenomena of there being no stars is just like you can't see stars from a camera, regardless whether you're on the moon or at your house.
Yeah. They did have find proof that on the moon, in the shots taken by the camera, there were rocks, 2 specific rocks that when they took the picture, one shadow of the rock was facing southeast and the other was facing to the east. And people were saying that that was based off of lighting that was in Area 51 or wherever they shot this, that the light was hitting the rocks at different areas with different lights. How would you explain that?
I've never been to the moon, so I don't know what the lighting is like on the moon. But I'm going to go ahead and say that the lighting on the moon probably isn't the same as in the Earth, so you can't just have it be bound to the fact that the lighting's different. The moon could have a faster rotation, the moon could be moving around the Earth faster, so depending on where, you know what I mean? Depending on where the moon is at the time that they were on there, the sun could be different.
I don't know how fast this conspiracy came about, but I think it'd be more believable, kind of in the aftermath of it, and generally, like in this day and age, I think it's more viable that we've been to the moon a couple times.
Yeah. And going back with the whole,
Space travel.
Area 51 being like in existence, it was like a lot of it was Cold War like panic and everything. Like there was a lot of stuff going on with the against like Russia and everything, and there was like a lot of technology like advancements during that time period, and people just kind of put that label and stigma on like this almost make-believe Area 51 that everything that the government is trying to keep secret from us, that's like Russia's doing to us or that we're trying to do to Russia, it's all being kept in this Area 51. I think it's a lot of Cold War panic. That's what came about Area 51.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of Cold War panic because the Russians already on the moon. The U.S. is probably going to start to get a little bit worried, and if the government can make it believe, or make the whole U.S. believe that we got to the moon, it's going to keep morale up and keep the nation supporting the government. That's the only reason I can see that they would fake a moon landing, really.
This is one huge giant step for the man and one...
Cut! You messed up the line again. Buzz, keep your helmet on. What are you doing? Yeah, we're finished this. Bring your Star Wars. Bring your Star Wars. We're done.
Welcome to New Mexico. What's this? Alright. Okay.
What's the password?
Well, it's gotta be 6.
It's now reacting to the compound.
The flux capacitors are overloaded.
Commence testing. 3,
What the?
2, 1. Testing complete.
The year is 1995. Denver International Airport is built. This seemingly harmless act definitely has deeper meaning when looked at in certain lights. Denver already had an airport in Stapleton International, and when Denver was created, it was made with fewer runways, reducing Denver's capacity. Even stranger, the walls of Denver International Airport contain paintings and murals of scenes of genocide and potentially the creation of a new world order. The runways of Denver International Airport form the shape of a swastika when looked at from an aerial point of view. Is this a creation by the U.S. government to create a new world order?
Alright, so the next conspiracy theory goes regarding Denver International Airport. The murals in the basements are drawn with scenes of the end of the world and genocide and people oppressing the lower classes. And then when looked at from an aerial view, the runways seem to form a swastika at certain points. So some people are thinking that maybe the United States government is trying to create a center for the creation of a new world order and maybe potentially take over the world using genocide to kill a lot of other people. I'm not sure how viable this is. It's a more recent conspiracy theory. Denver International was just built in 1995, and a lot of new stuff is coming out as of like 2007 and later.
Well, if you look at some of the murals, like when you talk scenes of genocide, it's creepy. It's just there's a picture. I believe it's a picture of a man. And he's got a sword and he's just like cutting the head off a dove or something. It's just like and a dove representing peace and all that. It's just why would you put this in an airport? And I've heard like I've seen a video on it. And I've seen other stuff where it's like people are not allowed to go into the basement, and people go down there and they work in the basement, but they don't talk about what they do there. And the fact that this one's a little more weird because the fact that the airport, the runways form a swastika, that could just be a coincidence. But at the same time, combined with the murals, it just makes it weird.
And if you look at Denver, they already had an airport before Denver International. It was called Stapleton. It was bigger. It held more people. The fact that they even built Denver International is fairly ridiculous because they already had an airport that was completely functional.
Yeah.
So it's like a question, can the government really pull something off like this? if they were even to believe in these crazy murals. I mean, when you talked about I didn't know they were that ridiculous. Like, that's clearly some, if not related to the government, some cultists, like.
Yeah, it's what it seems like is like if you believe in this, you believe in a whole new world order. Someone else is controlling our government. There's like people pulling the strings behind it. It's weird stuff like that.
Do we know if the government actually had the murals painted on the walls when the airport was established, or were they just like found one day to be down there or something?
No, it was like they painted them on there, but no one knows why they were like, yeah, let's just draw genocide.
No, there was an interview with the painter of the pictures, and he describes it in a weird way, trying to say that like them representing genocide is supposed to like show all the people there that like world peace can be achieved regardless of the past or something. It like when you look at it, it just kind of seems like a ridiculous argument to have a bunch of genocidal murals in an airport.
Maybe he's like just a crazy troubled artist. It's just like I'm gonna paint my picture of peace.
Was he hired to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like maybe he's just a loony. It's like I don't think.
Yeah.
It's like that's probably the most reasonable thing about it.
I don't think they would just hire him and be like, "Yo, freelance this."
Yeah,
he
but
probably had like some idea of like what he was gonna do.
Was he an employee at the airport?
Yeah.
I don't think he was an employee.
Even
but I
if
think he's like a professional painter. They hired him to paint.
Even if they just had him freelance and do whatever he wanted, it's not like you walk down that hallway and you're like, yeah, that's cool, man. Like, you'd be like, nah, we can't have people getting shot here.
Yeah, it's like we're at an airport. Like, what are you doing? Like, why am I looking at Yeah, I wouldn't even want to go there. I'd be like, these murals are freaking me out. I don't want to see genocide.
There's no way, like, the murals are any. That's what I'm saying. There's no way they could be related to the airport, but that's, I guess, the theory. They're related to the airport.
This one's interesting because
It'd be unbelievable.
this one's interesting because like all the other ones, like we kind of like trying to make connections where there aren't ones, but there like are actually murals there, and there are actual like freaky things happening at the airport. So it's not like whether or not it's happening, it's there. So it's like trying to interpret why it's there. You know, did someone put it there for a reason, or was it just some kind of weird art phase that some lone artist thought was cool, or what it probably was, which I would believe it is. I don't think it was backed by anything bigger than that. But it's freaky because it actually exists more than the other ones we talked about.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the murals that we're talking about, they're just in this like one like back corner of the airport that people.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I don't think it's like it's not the. I don't think it's the whole.
Yeah, it's not the whole
airport
airport
like that.
You could go through
one
it in
section
one,
that's
it's
just like.
It's one sec. What I've heard is it's one section, and then there's like a way to go down to the basement. So it's like that to the basement where no one knows what happens, and the swastika thing, where it's just the fact that we don't know what's going on there is what makes it.
Jackson, wait your turn.
But then one more second. But then as weird as the murals and stuff are, it could just be coincidence because another thing that it said was there's like this giant 32-foot tall horse as you enter the airport for just everyone to be like, what's that doing there? So like maybe the people who designed this airport just like had something wrong with them or like woke up on the wrong side of the bed. This could just all be coincidence that just people took too far.
But if it's just a coincidence, tell us what's happening in the basement. Like, what's the big deal?
The airport
Don't
should,
try to keep it a
release
secret.
something. I mean,
they should like give.
They should be like, all right, we're like getting rid of like
get rid of the murals. What are you doing keeping them? You're just like creating a bunch of controversy.
But maybe it's covered up. That's.
This is why it's a conspiracy. There's something going on. There could be something going on. I think there is something going on.
I think that's what keeps the conspiracy alive. Where if it was just like
released,
if we're like, we're sorry about that, it's over, it's nothing. But there's still this cloud mystery around. It's still like, why didn't the airport say something right when they noticed it?
It's like the whole about modern myths and everything. It's like the government doesn't want to say anything. For some reason, they don't want to tell us, and that's why
it just keeps us wondering and makes it worse as people just speculate more and more about what could potentially be happening.
All right, go ahead, Jackson.
With the Denver airport, I don't think it was whoever built this, they were some terrorist Nazi artist or anything. I think it was just a third-party person that when they built the airport, they hired someone to just draw something, draw something on the walls that would, like, just as decoration, and that third-party person took it like a little too far. Like it was using some sort of form of modern art, or they weren't thinking properly. I don't think it was any sort of the matter like purposefully meant to represent Nazis or terrorism or anything like that.
We're good. All right, we good?
Okay.
All right.
Is this Terminal 4?
Oh, Terminal 4 is Terminal 4. You go out there and you just bank a left right down the corridor and you'll be good.
September 11th, 2001. The date of the most devastating attack on U.S. soil. This attack was perpetrated by a group linked to Al-Qaeda. Many conspiracy theories have arisen over this attack. Some believe that the U.S. government actually was responsible for this attack. Could this be the case, or do any other theories surrounding the attacks have any credibility?
Alright, so 9/11 attacks perpetrated by members of Al-Qaeda that flew 4 planes into 2 into the World Trade Center towers, 1 to the Pentagon, and then 1 to an unidentified target, presumably the White House or the Capitol building. That one was taken down by the passengers on board. There are a bunch of conspiracy theories revolving around these attacks, but the main one is that the U.S. government or rogue agents from the CIA perpetrated these attacks to... There's no reason, I've never heard a reason why they did it, it's just that the government did this.
Well, I think it would definitely be because the United States wanted to create some sort of nationalism. They want to get everyone to rally around all outside forces.
Invading Iraq.
Yeah,
they're pretty fair.
They probably just wanted to invade Iraq, and they were like, we do this, blame it on some Iraqi people, and then we have a completely justified war in the eyes of the American people. Start the war on terror, and pretty much just got into Iraq.
Very similar to the USS Maine.
Like, if you think about it, though, in the USS Maine, they didn't kill 3,000 people. Like, do you really think the government would just kill...
No way would the government have done this. They would not sacrifice that many lives to
Just
create
to
the
go into
worst
Iraq.
terror attack on the United States
Ever
in our history.
This is why
this is not the government.
This is why the conspiracy theories arose, because when people look at the buildings collapse, engineers, plane designers and stuff, they said that the planes themselves did not have the weight or the amount of fuel to cause explosions like those seen in the videotapes, and the buildings would not have collapsed straight
they
down.
call straight down. It's ridiculous.
The top of the building, they hit like pretty much at the top, 3/4 of the way up, the planes. The top of the building doesn't fall over, nothing like that happens. The things just go straight down.
I'd say that's the most interesting thing to me, is how they fall.
I think that's just a phenomenon that occurred when the planes hit. I don't think that there'd be something, a rigged explosion like that, because maybe these engineers don't even know what they're talking about. They probably do, but it's just why would,
things happen.
Things happen. It's just look where the planes hit. You want the building to collapse, and probably the way it was built, it wasn't done to tip-top over.
I mean, you think the people who actually, the terrorists that did this actually thought the 2 towers were going to collapse completely? Probably not. And I think it's that was a crazy phenomenon that happened, and that's the weirdest thing to me.
I think they were just trying to hit the towers, and the fact that they fell down completely was just a bonus for them, but say how horrible that is. But I mean, I don't think they, the government planned something to make it happen like that. That just seems like a ridiculous thing.
Because even if they did rig explosions, it was the glass wasn't shattering or anything like that. It was just random stuff like that.
It goes into detail. People put points in where it could have happened where they put it on the steel frame, they didn't put it near the glass. They went to the steel frame of the building, they cut holes, and they put C4 on these beams, and then
I think that's the best point you can make, is how they collapse. Not really the things behind it that people try to claim, just how they kind of collapse and how it kind of turned out. It's probably the freakiest thing about it.
If you go to New York City, you can see the memorial, and it's not like there's a ton of blocked off area. It's there's the memorial right here, and then right next to where the towers used to stand, there's just buildings that were there before the plane crashes. They literally fell straight down and did almost no damage to the rest of the city.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous how they fell, and that's why people are it couldn't have happened like that. But another part of the conspiracy is that because of the U.S. government, they had hijacked 4 planes, and apparently the 4th plane was an extra plane or an emergency plane. If something went wrong in one of the planes, they were going to have this plane fly into one of the buildings, and that's why they crash landed or whatever. They just decided that we don't need this plane, and they falsified an attack on the hijackers, and so.
I mean, a smaller question of the conspiracy is where that plane was heading. I mean, like you said, Capitol Capitol building or DC is like the best guess, but which building do you guys think it was? I'm thinking it's got to be the White House. It's the. It might not be, if you really think about it, the Capitol building might be. It's definitely more important. The White House is such a symbol, such a symbol of America. The White House, like it's
crazy to compare though what a plane did to the the huge tower compared to the Pentagon. The Pentagon looked like a smaller explosive device went off, while like a whole tower was
The Pentagon is also the top military base in the world.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it's made
No,
out of like.
but it'll be. It's not going to take, and also it's not a tower, so it's not going to.
Nothing's
It's built
collapsing.
different. Yeah, it'll be built differently.
Well, I'm just
Nothing's
saying
gonna
the
collapse.
explosion looked smaller and denser compared to.
Yeah,
Here's the thing.
Like if they wanted to destroy the Pentagon, like they obviously weren't trying to, because they knew, like they knew the Pentagon wasn't really going to get hit that hard. And I think that's what they thought the towers too.
Exactly.
If they wanted to destroy the Pentagon, they'd send
There was
10 more planes.
Here's the problem with the Pentagon one. People have a problem with this. It's a widely known fact that the Pentagon is a series of rings where it goes outer ring is like not the it's important, but it's the least important of the 5 rings. The inner ring is the most important. The plane that hit it hit the outer portion of the building and it destroyed the outer portion of the building that it hit. But apparently that part of the building was under renovation. Now, if as a 17-year-old American that I know that this part of the Pentagon is the most important, terrorists who've done the research on how to fly a plane know that this is the most
They
important.
have to be aiming for that if they're really doing
No,
it.
but it's like,
Why would
how
they
much do
aim for
they
it?
actually know? That's the biggest question. It's like if they're in some
Well,
cave in Afghanistan.
But they're not in some cave. They trained in the United States
I mean,
for
they've been looking
years
at
to
How
fly these
easy
planes.
is it to fly a plane
Yeah, think about it. It's
that
like, yeah, how can
difference
you?
of an area?
Yeah.
I mean, if the plane's just falling and crashing and it's aimed
Sure, I think-
somewhere in the building, it's just going to hit
If
somewhere.
that
I don't think you can make it aim,
Like,
say, another.
Well, they hit a
100
tower.
yards.
Put it that way. They hit
No,
a
but it's also it was the
Yeah,
biggest
but-
towers in New York City.
Tallest, but not like the widest.
Yeah.
Their aim is definitely pretty good. They took flight school. They
Yeah.
learned how to fly planes well.
Yeah,
If they wanted
it's
to
not
hit
that
the
they missed
middle
the
of the
building.
Pentagon, I'm sure they could.
It's that they missed the building. They missed the middle of the building by so they.
They'd have to dive
Here's the
bomb
building.
the
They
Pentagon.
hit like the side of it.
Yeah, but you'd have to like dive bomb to the middle of the Pentagon in DC.
You just have to take a correct angle.
Yeah, you just go
That's what
gradual
I'm saying.
decline.
It's not
and just
all that easy.
And here's another problem with that. It's the Pentagon, like you said, the most important military base in the world. Why were there no fighter aircraft? Like, there's a Boeing 747
coming out of nowhere at us.
flying over
Why
the
aren't we
Capitol.
destroying
Why aren't we
this?
blowing it up before it hits the Pentagon? Why are they just like, it's gonna hit the Pentagon? Oh no.
Let's watch it.
Yeah, but it's like how fast.
You think they'd have something like
They definitely
Again,
didn't
it's in
expect that to happen.
DC. It's not something where it's just like, oh, we have to scramble jets. They have to fly 500 miles. It's a pretty important area of the country where they know what they're doing.
Yeah, but it's not like they're.
Jackson.
I really don't think that the government purposefully blew up the Twin Towers just to make it seem like a kind of like a hysteria thing. I think it's just a building fell. Buildings fall down when they're struck by planes. It's a horrible thing to think about, but yeah, that's what happens. The government, anyone thinking that the government would do it that's not what the government does. The government isn't going to self-detonate something to even worsen the effects of terrorism. It's just that's not what they do.
London, 1717. The world's most secretive group, the Freemasons, is formed. To many, the Masons are simply an elite men's club. But as their influence grows, a common belief begins to spread. A belief that the Masons are behind everything. Cryptic handshakes, closed-door lodge meetings, and hush-hush rituals have always been kept on the down low. As we take a closer look at American foundations, the question begins to arise. Do the Masons rule the world?
Oh, fellow
brother
Mason!
Neil. Hello, fellow
Masons.
Masons.
What can I get you?
I always take the glass of milk.
Oh, glass of milk half filled. Here you are. Oh,
To milk, boys.
don't
to
forget
milk.
your
To
Mason
milk.
coaster.
My coaster.
Yes.
You know, gentlemen, such a proud organization we are, 1717, created in London.
Indeed.
This guy right here? No, not by that.
Well,
Not by that guy, but he was one of us.
was a great member.
Yes.
Indeed, one of the
To
first and
Brother
one of the
Washington.
best.
To Brother
Brother
Washington!
Washington! Aye.
But seriously, we trace back who we are in America and how we founded this. It was really all us.
Our
We
sphere
did
of
it.
influence
Yes.
is so widespread. We've had so much power over the course of
I mean,
years.
think about how many presidents have been
Franklin.
Masons.
It's a Mason cannon right here.
Do you want to just name all the presidents?
Oh, let's just start.
Adams, Jefferson. I could go and keep going.
Oh, Mason
Brother
Ben!
Brother Ben, join us.
Join us, Brother Ben.
Where did you find the delectable Chinese food?
Here's your Mason milk. And your Mason coaster.
We were just talking about all the presidents that have been Masons over the course of history.
They say that there's been about 60% of all presidents have been Masons.
Oh, that's more than half.
And it is also said that they all originate from one very proud family called the Astor family.
The Astor family.
Oh, yes, I've heard of them.
Rich German immigrants come over to the New World. If you trace them back in history, they have a huge role in everything that's made. But you check out the Masons with the presidents, and you look at, after each president who resigned or was assassinated, the president following is usually of questionable Mason status. Most think usually the exact opposite, and completely against Freemasons.
Really?
Why would they be against us? We're a great society.
Well, we do take the rap for bad things sometimes. The Denver airport conspiracy theory, some people believe that it's Freemasons creating that to create a new world order where Masons rule.
Ah, all my brother Masons here. Today America, tomorrow the world.
The world!
Brother Dickie, let's do our handshake.
Ah, yes, the Mason handshake. Before.
Oh! Brother Neil has performed the handshake wrong.
What are you doing, Brother Neil?
Glad to have you back, Brother Neil. I'm sorry I ever questioned you.
Now quick, Brother Jackson. Oh wait, he's on a special mission.
Mission
To Jackson.
To Jackson.
Jackson, Brother Jackson.
You are now a Mason.